Today I'm joined by Grace Simpson. Grace is a co-owner of Goupie, a confectionery brand making handmade chocolate treats. And Goupie has won numerous awards and accolades, and customers include the National Trust and Liberties. So welcome, Grace.
Hiya.
Hi, thanks for joining us today. So, Grace, tell us a little bit more about Goupie.
Yeah, so I mean, you've summarized it quite nicely there. We basically make a uniquely textured chocolatey treat, which is something my grandma used to make, and we've adapted it into a whole range of flavors. We sell it all across the country, but we've got a nice little stronghold in the southeast because we're based in Goudhurst and we make it all there.
Lovely. Okay, excellent. So let's go into a little bit of the origin story, because I've read about this on the website. So tell us a little bit more about how it came about, because you mentioned there that it was a recipe by your grandma, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's essentially the treat that my grandma made. I guess like anyone's grandma would make, like a fridge cake or Rice Krispie treats all the time, or maybe they make brownies or the best, whatever it is. My grandma used to make Goupie. It was in her like little handwritten recipe book. We're not really sure whether she made it up or where she got it from, but she used to make it for my mum and her sisters, and then in turn my mum used to make it for us at all sorts of events. And we kind of, me and my sister, convinced her one day she should try to sell it, and it naturally evolved from there as a business. Yeah.
Okay. So how did you sort of start out? Did you sort of, was it just sort of like the view that actually we'll just sort of sell this locally and sort of see what happens, or how did it start and how did it grow into what it is today? Sorry, I'm asking a number of questions here, but let's ask an original question. When roughly did you decide to turn it into a business from a family treat? What time was that, Grace?
Yeah, so in 2010, my parents have had a number of businesses actually over the years. They've had some together, some separately. And my mum she was making soaps at the time, and also had a sort of like a wedding guide. And this is when the internet was just sort of getting really going. So she ended up selling the physical wedding guide because they were going to put it all online. And she was like, what should I do next? And we were like, oh, well, everyone should have Goupie. We were, well, teenagers, so obviously we were going to talk about chocolate.
Yeah.
She made a batch and her and my dad took it to some local cafes, and I guess the idea was just, does anyone even want it? And they did. They got some orders from that initial thing, and from then on, pretty much my sixth form life was our kitchen covered in batches of Goupie, me going to events with her and selling it ad hoc. And then that grew to getting our own production unit in 2012. I went to university and studied business, and then I came back and joined full-time Goupie, and that's when we kind of decided to try and push it a bit more nationally, rather than the local cafes and farm shops, which is what we were predominantly doing then.
Right. Okay. So that's the sort of story of how you've sort of moved. So now you've got your own production unit, and you've got a team of people that in production and that sort of thing. So and in terms of, you said national now, and I mentioned when I introduced you about the National Trust and also Liberties that stock this as well. So is that what you're looking to do now? Is to grow the business, wider and nationally, internationally? Where are you looking to go?
Yeah, so we've dabbled a bit internationally as well. I'd say we've had a sort of changing strategy over the years. So when I first joined, I thought the obvious route for us to go was national distributors. We kind of could get big old orders with one customer because we're a very small team. So we do have a small team in the factory, but it is really just sort of five of us doing things, and only two of us are full time, which is me and my mum. So I thought, okay, distributors got to be the first step. So we kind of worked towards making the product ready for distributors. So with barcodes, the pricing, getting that right, how we were going to ship it in volume. Probably around 2016, 2017, I managed to sign, we had 5 or 6 national distributors. And that was sort of the growth strategy then.
Yeah.
Then we moved more into trying to focus more on the relationship with the trade customers.
Okay.
So taking back a little bit of that distribution because you kind of lose control along the way. And now we're focusing much more on direct to consumer. So predominantly our business is trade based. We have a national distributor that we've kept. And then about 25% of our business is now direct to consumer online, which is what we're actively trying to grow at the moment.
Okay, so that's the big focus. And yeah, and I was looking at, you know, your website, and yeah, you've got sort of a commerce website where, yeah, people can buy and go on there and buy as well. Okay, so let's delve into things a little bit in detail here. So you've studied business, but you know, I don't know about your experience, but studying business and actual business can be fairly different. So what challenges have you faced as being a business owner since you sort of started to transition the business to where it is now?
Yeah, that's quite funny. I think you're the first person who's ever said that. Most people are like, "Oh, great, so you're doing exactly what you study to do." But I use so little of my business degree running Goupie, like that.
Yeah.
Basically none of it. It's almost irrelevant on my day-to-day life. Um, so yeah, I guess that was pretty quick to establish itself. And I think even just the last 4 years has been a pretty odd time. So probably what I was thinking then has also evolved a lot now. I don't know whether I could condense it down into one thing I've learned. I think it's you're constantly having to adapt and evolve, aren't you? And reposition yourself for yeah, amend what you thought things would look like to how the reality is and what you personally want as well. Because as a small business owner, I assume most people are doing it because they want to take control of their own life as well as their business life. So trying to balance what you actually want to get out of it as a business owner and also what you want your business to get out of it. And yeah, I guess that changes probably as you get older. Probably me and my mum had very different views of that to begin with as well. So yeah, constant learning.
I completely agree. And look, the reason I can say that about the, you know, studying business. I mean, I did a degree in financial services and business management, so I know how much of that I use. In fact, my eldest daughter's doing business at A level at the moment, and yeah, I'm constantly looking at her work, thinking, "Yeah, you won't use that. Yeah, you won't use that." So it's so absolutely agree, because yeah, look, it is very different. But actually, what I like, there was a number of things I liked about what you said there, Grace. But one of the things that really hit me, and I think is so valuable, is actually thinking about what you want, what you want the business to give you personally. Because a lot of people, when they start a business, they don't have that clarity, and what happens is the business ends up running them, rather than them running the business and it giving them the life that they want. So I think that's a great thing that you've thought about there. Is okay, well, what do we want from this business, and therefore what does the business need to look like to give us that? And that's a great starting point. And the other thing you mentioned there was that adaptability. I guess, well, adaptability and having an open mind as well, in terms of there's always something new to learn. We don't know everything. So what do you like about being a business owner, Grace?
Oh, I mean, I like the control, and I hope that doesn't come across as I mean, yeah, maybe most business owners are control freaks, but yeah, I quite like the control over my own situation. I've done brief, stints of formal work here and there, and I've always been quite frustrated over I don't know, there's a lot of sort of corporate answers that you get, or things that you can't do for no real reason, or it's always been done this way, or um I don't know, I quite like that I can really just get on with it, take action and try a few different things as well. I don't think if I had worked for another company, I would never have done all the different things that I've done and been able to do young and against high standards or people who are more experienced than me in the field. There's no way I would have been able to do that if I
Yeah.
hadn't done it myself. And also I get to work with my mum, which is quite a rare thing to get to see your family once you've left home as much as I do. So that's a nice bonus.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're right. So being a business owner is, it's okay. You're a manufacturer and distributor of handmade chocolates, but actually the production of those chocolates and distribution is just one part of it, isn't it? It's about marketing and sales. And you mentioned you've got a team, so it's actually about then leadership and management, and finance and all of those other things that actually, being a business owner, you have to have some sort of knowledge of. um how great that is depends on the people you surround yourself with. You might employ people to support you with finance or sales or marketing, but you still got to have some knowledge of it.
Yeah, it almost feels sometimes as a business owner, you're expected to be an expert in absolutely everything.
Mm,
Like as a food manufacturer, for example, we need to be really hot on allergens. We need to
mm.
be a labeling expert if you want it to not just be sold in the UK, but if you want to sell it abroad, that's a whole other thing. Then you need to be an export expert. You need to be a marketing expert, including your social media. You need to be able to do your PR. You need to be able to sell to people. You need to, yeah, make the product. Like it's you are expected to know or be capable of quite a lot, or competent in a lot of things. It is a bit overwhelming, but it's also, I guess, unusual to have that ability to take ownership for all those different roles.
Exactly, as you said, if you worked in another organization, you wouldn't have that sort of exposure. And that is one of the dilemmas of starting out a new business, because yeah, you've got that thing where actually we need experience in all of these areas. But when you start out, you can't always afford to invest in people to do it for you. So
Yeah.
actually, you end up doing it yourself, until such time as you build up some profits that you can invest in other people to do it, like you've done. You've gone from it being just you and your parents to actually now you've recruited some production people and those sort of things. So it is, as you grow, you can start to bring people in or outsource it. So, Grace, if you had to start from square one in business, what would you do differently?
Honestly, I would probably not choose to be a producer.
Okay.
I would probably choose to buy a product
Right.
and sell the product from someone else who's producing it. I think it's our biggest strength, but it's also our biggest I don't want to call it a weakness, but headache, is that we do produce the product ourselves as well. So you
Mm,
are constantly fighting fires on both ends, and you're up against huge branding initiatives. Basically, a lot of these brands are just that they're a sales and marketing operation, and someone else is doing all the production for them, so they can focus just on selling the product. And when you're trying to do both, I think that's quite a difficult thing. Production margins are also not great, particularly not in food.
mm.
So if I was being honest, I would probably start my own thing. I'd probably build my own Shopify website and sell something that was already made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but from what I've read, your part of the business is more the. Am I right in saying the marketing and the sales of things?
Yeah.
And your mum is more the production. She gets the nice. Well, actually, you get the nice job of tasting as well, but she comes up with different flavors and those sort of things. Yeah, have I understood that correctly?
Yeah, roughly split.
Yeah.
She does production and I do the sales and marketing. I mean, it's a small business. You do a bit of everything, but yeah,
Yeah, you
in
have
terms
to.
of responsibility, that's how we're split.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So in a way, I guess it doesn't surprise me in terms of you sort of saying, well, actually, I wish I could just focus on the sales and marketing. But
I think she would say the same though. I
really,
think,
right? Okay.
yeah.
Okay. 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 So look, what would you say are some of the misconceptions or common misconceptions that about running a business? And how do you address them?
I think most people probably run a business because they think they're going to have more time for
Mm,
themselves, and maybe that they're going to earn more,
yeah.
or at least that they're going to see the rewards of their earnings more. And I think both of those are, well, I hope not everyone's experience, but definitely our experience is that is not the case. I mean, you are always on if it's your business. Social media has made that especially hard. And again, maybe I'm coming at it from a marketing perspective, who is the one who handles all of our correspondence. But
Mhm.
every time my phone goes off, I'm thinking, is it like a customer who has a query or has something happened? So there's no sort of downtime.
Yeah.
No one else is going to do the job if you're not there. So taking time off, you basically just work harder the week before and harder the week after, and then you get your week off.
Yeah.
And the money also, I think if particularly when you're starting out, I mean, you're not going to be making loads of money. But also if you have employees who you're responsible for, or you want to grow the business, all of our money pretty much goes back into growing the business or keeping staff.
Yeah.
So you don't earn more than you would have done in, at least not at this level. Hopefully, if you can keep growing, maybe you can start to reap rewards of that, and maybe you can get more of a team and your time will come back. But certainly not, I would say, as a small early stage business, you're not going to have more time and more money. But then you can manage that in that the time is your own. So you don't have to look 9 to 5 for your day. You can look for the whole 24-hour spectrum, and you can work in the pockets that suit your own life at home, right? And in terms of money, because you've got that, and because you are working, in my case, I'm working with family. My fiance is also working part-time with us now. So I get less financial reward, but I get more personal rewards. So that's, I
Nice.
take that as a good trade-off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, and look, and you again, you're absolutely right in what you say there, Grace, in that, yeah, I think most people go into business sort of saying, yeah, I'm going to earn more money, I'm going to work less hours. And at least initially, that isn't necessarily the case. Yes, there are examples of people that have been an overnight success and suddenly, yeah, made it. But you're right, it can take a long time to get to that particular stage, and a lot of hard work. And actually, the stats support that, because, and I don't know whether you know this, but 60% of new businesses fail in the first 5 years, and
Yeah.
90% fail in the first 10 years. And
Yeah.
when I say foul, the main reason for that is because they didn't realize that first bit of, it's not going to be an overnight success. I'm not initially going to be making more money. I'm not going to be working less hours. And when they realize that they're working longer hours and earning less money, they think, actually, do you know what? I'll go back and be an
What would I
employee.
do then? It's
Yeah.
interesting that you said that you were talking about like listening to other podcasts
Yeah.
before. I think that we do hear these stories of these businesses, and what I have realized is they are the exception, or at least they are following a very different business model to what most small business owners are following.
Mm.
They're following a high investment, a 3-5 year exit strategy sort of model, where basically they just want to quickly grow the business with someone else's money, ideally,
Mm.
and then they want to sell that on and go on to their next one. It's kind of like that serial entrepreneur
Yeah.
vibe. But if you're a small business owner who's doing it like we are, so it's a family business, it's family recipe, it means more to us than
Yeah.
quickly getting in and quickly getting out. You want to build it sustainably. We've got no external investment. It's going to grow slowly, because you have to grow in line with what you're actually earning. And that, I think, is a better long-term strategy. I mean, a lot of these big investment companies then fail in a year after they were sold, or they don't get their next seed round, and the company can't suffice itself because they haven't been trying to make profits. But I think it depends on your model, doesn't it? But I
Yeah.
would say probably most business owners are in our boat of, they wanted to do it for themselves and for the lifestyle, and because it meant something to them.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
yeah.
certainly been my experience as well. So yeah, I would agree with that. And it takes time, it takes effort, but ultimately, when you go through that, you can see the rewards at the other
Yeah.
end. And as we discussed earlier, the the rewards at the other end are actually individual to everyone.
Mm.
Okay, so it's not, your definition of success might be different to my definition of success. It might be different to. I mean, I think you even sort of said that, perhaps at the beginning, you and your mum weren't sort of 100% aligned with actually where's this going to go? Where do we want to sort of take it? Because everybody's views are different, and it's making sure that actually where you are going is going to give you the rewards that you want. Some people want to be multimillionaires. Some people just want to live a nice living, or have a nice living. So it's up to you. Okay, so what's in? Look, there's one question that I like to ask people, Grace, in on all of these, and for some people they need to think back a little bit further than perhaps you would. But what advice would you give an 18-year-old you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was 18, I was actively planning my entrance into Goupie, which is I probably a bit unusual. I was probably quite a boring teenager in that respect. But in terms of advice, I think we assume that everyone has got all the answers. I think social media also really portrays certain images of people. Everyone seems very put together. Everyone seems to know what they want. Everyone seems successful. And I think my advice would probably be that no one really knows what they're doing. So you may as well confidently give it a go yourself, because the worst that's going to happen is you'll fail, you'll learn something from it, and then you can try again. When you're young, you can afford to make mistakes. Yeah, I mean, whether I would even yeah, it's about your experiences. So I think you've just got to try some stuff, whether that's uni for you or not. I don't know if that's, it's going to be different for everyone, whether you want to just try your own business, try a little shop somewhere, or no one knows what they're doing though. So you may as well give it a go.
You know, I really like that, actually, Grace, that no one knows what they're doing. We often look out the window as such and look at other people, look at other business owners, look at other people. And as you say, particularly with social media, and it looks that everybody's got it sorted. Everyone else except me has got, got a plan, and they know where they're going, and they know what they're going to do, and all this sort of stuff. It's rarely the case. Again, from my experience of working with business owners, everyone's got their own challenges, their own difficulties, their own things they're facing. May not seem it from the outside, but it certainly is from the inside. And I like what you sort of said there, and as an individual, that actually, yeah, look, experience things, try a few things, you'll find your way. You'll find out what works for you. So I think that's a great bit of advice. And as I mentioned earlier, I've got, one of my daughters is 18 at the moment, hence why I like to ask this question and pass her on the advice that that other people would give to themselves. So that's great. Thank you very much for that, Grace.
You also say, as an 18-year-old, you probably have a better grip on what's going on social media currently than most of the people who are doing it for a living. So you've got a skill there that you could utilize immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true, so true. I think, yeah, as you get older, you just become slightly more removed from it, don't you? And but yeah, no, absolutely true. I think that's something that can be used. So, well, Grace, look, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today and sharing more about your business, but also your journey as well. So, thank you very much.
Thank you for talking to me.